No one to trust. Disinformation war in media is the name of this panel. How bad it is, and is it true? It's something that we're going to discuss with the panelists, and I think we have perfect candidates for such a discussion. I'll start with Milena Popovic, who is editor-in-chief of the Serbian fact-checking platform, first of that kind, Istinomer. I'm not sure if we have Ilya on the line. He was supposed to join us.
Yeah, I'm here.
I can see
Hi.
him. Yeah. You're joining us from Italy. It's Ilya Krasilshchik from HelpDesk.
Yes, I'm from Italy, but I'm just here for a vacation. Yes.
Okay, but you are one of, as far as I know, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. You're one of the founders of the Russian platform Medusa, but currently working at
Correct.
HelpDesk media platform.
That's correct.
Okay, and we have another gentleman here. His name is Kyryl Savin. He is the program director for Ukraine at DW Akademie. We've seen a video which was a good introduction, I would say, not the latest or newest video, but the fact-checking video produced by DW on Russian propaganda. Would you say that we are currently stuck in a very challenging time or times, especially because we have war happening in Europe, close to our borders, depending where we are located, and how bad it is? Who wants to start?
Okay. I can start, maybe. I think the problem with Russian propaganda and disinformation, it's not really beginning from February 24th, because it was since 2014 some kind of informational war between Russia, Ukraine, and maybe Russia and western part of the world, let's say. And it's not really new, it's long-term problem, let's say. But in the same time, it's also nothing special, because we have, of course, propaganda and disinformation also without war and without Russia. It is normal. It's like we are all human beings living on this planet. There is also some things like infection or bacteria. It could be not so healthy for us human beings. And that is about some kind of rules of hygiene to live with these things. I think disinformation and propaganda and fake news and so on, it's like this infection in bacteria. We have to find out some rules, some hygiene rules to live without them. Because I think it is not possible to kill all of disinformation channels and all of fake news and so on and so forth. It will be now, it will be tomorrow, and it will be the day after tomorrow. The question is about how to teach our kids, also us, to live with this disinformation and how to consume media to be safe and to be sure that you have trustable and reliable media and not fake news or disinformation.
It has been intensified for sure, and it seems like there is obviously increased amount of false information, and it's not that easy to keep the tempo or up to speed to basically debunk all these false information. That's probably the reason we talked about this earlier, why we have so many fact checkers. What's your experience, Milena?
Well, I can agree that, of course, this war just we meet with this war in a really difficult time. Of course, never is time for war, of course, but when we talk about disinformation and fake news and propaganda, I can agree that that's nothing new. And if we look just a few months before the conflict started, we had a pandemic in which disinformation and fake news just blew up. And before that, we had one term in post-truth, and which that determinates our society in which we are living. So this disinformation chaos about war in Ukraine is something that we can expect it to happen.
Ilya, of course, we want to hear your
Yes,
views
let
as
me add
well.
something from the Russian side. As a country which somehow invented this invented fakes, I think that I'm a Russian journalist for a long time, and I'm a Russian citizen, and we are facing this problem for a long time, I don't think that. So we started about this information after February 2022, and Kyryl is absolutely right that this problem is much, much older. But I need to also add that this is not only a problem, that the disinformation is part of the much broader problem for us, and this problem called corruption. So disinformation is basically the corrupted information. But I think that in Russia, this is the result of the corruption in the government and society. So our, I don't know, our legal system is corrupted, our government is corrupted, our voting system is corrupted, and the information system is also corrupt, and is actually destroyed. And what we see right now, it's hugely awful. But this is a result of the destroying the free press and destroying the oppositional voices. Because when you don't need to be checked, when nobody can check you in your own country, you can say actually anything. But the result of this strategy is that your what you say means nothing for people who understand that disinformation exists. So it wasn't like this before, but right now, for example, for us, we decided that there is no Russian side, no Russian no Russian informational site in any story. So we don't believe, we not only don't believe, for example, Russian foreign ministry or Vladimir Putin or Russian military, we just ignore them. And actually, I think that the most important thing to, this is really important to ignore disinformation if you can ignore it, because disinformation needed an audience, and it will die without an audience. So sometimes even the fight with disinformation helps this disinformation to born and to live. For example, there is hugely popular Russian Telegram channel called War with Fakes. And this Telegram channel is funded by Kremlin. So this channel faked with, so for this channel, fakes is the real information. And the war with fakes is to fight disinformation with information. So this is a fight which will never end. And I think that sometimes it's better just to ignore this and to help people to ignore this, just not to start the communication with people who started these things. Just ignore this. Thanks.
This would be, by the way, good opportunity to maybe give some examples of what are you dealing with on daily basis. As far as I know, and I'm not living in Serbia, but in past few days, I mean, there is a bunch of crap, if I may say, of Russian propaganda on so many TV channels, and intensified in the past few months since the war begun in Ukraine. So what's your take, and what's the experience of you and your colleagues at Istinomer?
Well, I think there's no better way to illustrate what is going on in Serbia with disinformation about war in Ukraine. But some example from our very popular and very reading and very with much influence daily newspaper, which published just 2 days before Russian attack on Ukraine. Informer, a daily newspaper, published the headline on its front page, the headline with the claim that Ukraine attacked Russia. So I think that is a really good example to which show us on how much truth is familiar, how much the media and in Serbia are familiar with the truth. And Istinomer, since the beginning of conflict, Istinomer debunked, I think, on several hundreds of disinformation of this topic, and in a first burst of information on the social networks, we had a really big amount of different kinds of manipulations about war in Ukraine. But in that first wave, we had a lot of disinformation which claims that conflict is directed and that the victims are fabricated. Now we can see that all of that disinformation actually came from Russia. So in Serbia we have disinformation inspired by Russia campaign disinformation.
Kyryl, can you maybe tell us something about the narrative in Ukraine? I mean, they are obviously also facing lots of Russian propaganda, even in Ukraine's territory. But yeah, maybe you can also share some examples.
Yes, it's interesting that Russian propaganda has a lot of narratives, and they are trying to spread these narratives to the target groups. And depending to the target groups, it's another narrative. For example, there is, of course, some domestic propaganda for Russian people within Russia about Nazi Ukraine and so on and so forth. Of course, it's absolutely, let's say, impossible to believe, but they try to do it. Of course, this narrative does not make sense abroad, not in Russia, because nobody will believe this narrative because it's absolutely not possible. In Ukraine, they try to make another way, or to go another way. They try to spread the narrative like, don't trust your Western partners because they are not reliable. They support you, but it will be not all the time. It's only about money. They would like to earn money, and they would like to make Russia and Ukraine, both of the state, weak. And on the end, some conclusion, let's struggle together against Western. That's something like that. And they try to make it very sophisticated. It's not so very direct propaganda, but they try to use some anonymous channels, Telegram channels mostly, and to push this not so directly, but in some maybe also some news that are really okay as a news, not as a fake news, not a misinformation, but on the end with some kind of conclusions that are absolutely ridiculous, but it is. And for the public in Western, Russian propaganda has another narrative, because of course both of them are not really past, but they try to convince people in Western, let's say, your governments are it's only about money, it's this war, it's bullshit, and it's only about money. These prices for energy, for resources are very high because of the war, because of your government. They are corrupt, so try to make revolution, let's say, or something like that. And that is this hierarchy of Russian narratives, and they're using all of channels, all possible channels. It's not only, of course, Russia Today or something like that, but also these Telegram channels, but not only Telegram, also Facebook and so on. And yeah, we have this mess with all of these narratives, disinformation narratives, but also with some facts, and it's a mixed, and I think it's a difficulty how to deal with this, because it's a really mixed of all of things, and I think for media it's a challenge how to separate, let's say, this disinformation narratives from some facts and so on.
Ilya, you're in a very specific position, so you're obviously, and your colleagues are trying to make a difference, and the topic here is no one to trust, or this is hypothesis, so to say. So what would you say, based on audience engagement and feedback from people you have, and traffic on your platforms, what's the situation in Russia now as we speak? Do people realize that they're being, if I may say, brainwashed by state media, and are they seeking for information elsewhere, for example, on your platform?
I think I need to add here to Kyryl that yes, surely there are different audiences, and the propaganda, for example, works with different audiences different ways. For example, when people watch Russian TV, they're 55, 65 plus, they like fairy tales, and when you watch the Russian TV, they can say actually anything, and people will believe it. It doesn't matter what they will say about, I think, some birds which are infected with some diseases which affects only Slavic people, or this is a true fake story, or about Polish gods in Donbass. Yes, nothing matter. Second audience are skeptics, and for skeptics they have different stories. The stories are that everybody lies. We lie, they lie, everybody are bad, so we don't need to believe anybody who don't want to do anything. Third audience is more our audience, people who understand that the war is awful, and this war is so Russia have sorry, I forgot the word. But this is done by law, yeah, and the people are strongly against this war. This is our audience, and a lot of Ukrainians is our audience, which is really important for us. And these people trying to work with their relatives, for example, who are brainwashed. But you know, this is really hard to change the mind of the brainwashed people. This is almost impossible, because you can say anything, but they will come back to their home. They turn on TV. In a couple of days, they will be brainwashed as the day before. I think so. What our strategy is here is, our strategy is to tell the people stories, not to discuss the global policy, not to trying to explain what Kremlin meant, or what Washington meant, or what in Kyiv is happening. We're trying to people stories. We're trying to show people how horrible the war is, how many tragedies is happening every day in Ukraine because of Russian aggression. And these are stories. We had a lot of comments from people. No, I don't. I see some things in your story, and which are strange, and that's why I think that this is fake. And this is the audience which I call skeptics. Yes, the government worked with them, the Russian propaganda worked with them by telling that everybody lies, that there are no black and white, there are not good and bad, everything is gray. Yes, so there is a lot of such people, but I think step by step they will understand what's happening. Actually, the government helps us, because after the mobilization started, a lot of people, when this war affected them directly, started to think, started to read. And I hope a lot of them understood something. And I think the last thing I want to say that I think the main target of Russian propaganda are Russian language people and people from the former Soviet Union and people with imperial syndrome and people who dream about the great Russia, people who think about resentment or have something inside them about it. And this is a perfect field for propaganda. And I don't think that the Russian propaganda for any other language people, which are not Russians or former Russian citizens, it's the samely effective. I think that the Russian war, informational war, is the same effective as the Russian real war. So not very effective. Mm-hmm. Surely we need to fight this, but I don't think that they can really change the people's minds when people have another options. Yes, and now another channels to get news. In Russia, they don't have them, and yes, you can read Telegram channels, but there is a lot of Telegram channels which are much more popular than the real channels like Medusa, for example, or us, and they have millions of subscribers, and the only thing they do that they are publishing fakes day by day. So when you are Russian language and you are in Russia, there's not so many ways to get another opinion, and this is the problem, because these people at the end will go to Ukraine and kill people. And the main thing we need to understand is how to fight the Russian propaganda in Russia. And this is much harder than fight it in Germany, in the US, or in I think, I don't know, but I think in Serbia.
Mm-hmm. Milena, do you agree? I mean, if we look at the West Balkans, maybe we don't have examples where, you know, Russia propaganda is extremely successful, but somehow I would say they are able to preserve the image of Russia, you know, as a brotherhood, a country that has close ties with Serbia. And besides, we have Sputnik here, we have Russia Today. There's like so many platforms and content doing a good job for Moscow. So what's your take on this?
Well, when we talk about media in Serbia in general, one important thing that we need to say is that we have extremely strong, not pro-Russian, but anti-Western narrative in most popular media in Serbia. And no matter what is the topic, the Serbian media will always put that topic, local topic or some foreign policy topic, in that strong anti-Western narrative, and that situation is here for years, I could say for decades actually. And just war in Ukraine just naturally follows that anti-Western discourse in Serbian media ecosystem. But if we talk about impact on the citizens, I have some numbers to improve how much that anti-Western and, in this case, and pro-Russian narratives just impact on attitudes of citizens of Serbia. And sorry, I need to check because I'm really bad with statistics and with the numbers. So, well, our surveys, CRTA organization surveys, just show us that from last month, actually, show us that 2/3 citizens of Serbia believe that US and NATO are the most responsible for the war, and 58% of citizens support the Russian side in the war, and only 22 the Ukraine side. So, and the other, you know, number is that just to check is that 16% of our citizens get information about war in Ukraine from TV stations with national coverage, and 1/3 of our citizens get information about this topic from television Happy. And television Happy is really, I can explain on a right way how much they are anti-Western media and pro-Russian media. For example, they have one TV show just after Central Informative TV show in which they have guests from our army industry, and they just talk not just Russian propaganda. They talk about conspiracy theories and things like, you know, that no one can trust. But we can see that it's really popular, and that citizens just believe in that.
Yeah, we know how brainwashing works. Like if you repeat lies so many times, at some point people start believing it. Since we're running out of time, I would try to focus a bit on what can be done. I mean, obviously you all contribute in your own way through a variety of projects, but you mentioned media literacy. Anything else, or are we supposed to intensify projects on that matter?
I can repeat my thesis about media literacy. I think it's a general very important, regardless Russia or not Russia, because disinformation will be, even after the war, and we have to learn to live with this. It will be maybe even more disinformation because the volume of information is increasing every day, I think. And of course, with a whole volume of information, there's also volume of disinformation is increasing. And we have to learn how to deal with this. And of course, it should be beginning from the school, how to select reliable media and how to consume trusty media, and to learn that social networks is not a source of information, but is a source of some information exchange or some opinions and so on. But it should be some reliable sources and so on. But especially for this situation, I think I agree with Ilya, because Russia has no really big success with this campaign, with this very expensive campaign. In Ukraine, not at all. I think in Europe in general also not really, maybe in the region, in the West Balkan, but not because they are very effective with some narratives or with some media, but because I think of some cultural or historical reasons. And I think everything is okay. It's a war, it's an information war. We have to be strong, and we have to survive and to in military sense, but also in the informational sense. Yeah. And keep calm, and we will win.
Ilya, your closing line in terms of what can be done to gain the trust of the audience again.
Yeah, this is a war. This is actually this is part of the war, and in this war we need to have the air force systems, yes, which will defend the real information. And I think I think here we can do two things. So this is defensive, yes, way to be. I think the main thing is to be interesting, yes, to be to tell stories in the way that a lot of people will read them. So the main, I think this is the very, very important weapon. Interesting stories, yes, real stories. Second thing is we need to ignore propaganda. Yes, we don't need to discuss it. This because the main audience of these stories will be people who already knows that that the Russian government lies anytime they just trying to say anything. So sometimes when we fight it, as I said before, we help it. But this is a defensive strategy. The only offensive strategy here is to change the Russian government, actually. And until we will not change it, we will face this problem and we will discuss it on any conference in the world, how to fight this. The problem is the source.
Okay. Milena, you have the last word.
Of course, I agree that media literacy is the first thing. Mm-hmm. Media literacy from the youngest one is the first thing that we need to have against disinformation. But I would say that we can actually learn something from the ones who spread disinformation. I think that disinformation disinformation are successful because they do not have facts, but they have emotion in their structure.
The message.
Yeah. So I think that maybe the good thing is to show citizens not just facts, but also the emotion. So I think like Ilya says that we need to show citizens what, or in this case, war can cause with the people and with people's lives and things like that. So I think and to try to make emotion with the facts. So I think that maybe that could be the things. Mm-hmm. Maybe could be successful in a fight with the disinformation.
Mm-hmm. Milena, Kyryl, Ilya, thank you very much. We probably didn't provide the final answers. Yes, you can give applause. Thank you. We probably didn't provide final answers, but at least contributed a bit as media professionals. And yeah, thank you for taking part in this discussion as obviously visitors and also to our guests watching this online. If I'm not mistaken, what's coming up next is another panel called On the Edge, Influences and Mental Health. So stay here.